Welcome, tacticians, to the grimdark arena of disappointment. I am Doodleman149, and today we're tearing into the worst characters in Warhammer 40k Tacticus. 19 units that make you question the Emperor's plan. From Certus to Mephiston, these are the heroes who fumble the ball in the 41st millennium. I'll only be taking the worst from each faction, so while some factions are definitely worse than others, I'll only be highlighting the single worst one from each faction. Grab your bolters, smash that like button, let's dive into the chaos. If you think I'm wrong, brace for the heresy and sound off in the comments. But before we get into this video is sponsored by myself. That's right, in case you guys didn't know, which, let's be fair, none of you do, I have my very own merch shop over on Spreadshirt. I've got a few designs based on some stuff that I frequently say in my videos and just some other designs that I like. My personal favorite, which I'm actually wearing right now, is the True Doodle Fan shirt. The shirts are high quality, soft, and unbelievably comfortable. So if you feel like getting some good clothes and supporting your favorite small YouTuber, then why not head over there and snag something nice for yourself? You deserve it. The link is in the description. We're kicking it off with Certus, the Ultramarine who feels like he forgot his Codex Astartes. He's campaign required for Indomitus, but his damage is alright, his movement is an absolute joke, and he brings no unique utility. His passive ability is pretty situational, and his active can be really good, but better mobility would allow him to actually push the enemies where you want them more effectively. Community tier list, slap him with a D tier label, and that is fine for early game, but you'll bench him once you grab Bellator or Calgar. Certus is the poster boy for just here to fill the roster. Abaddon the Despoiler, the War Master of Chaos. He should be shattering planets, but in Tacticus he's more like breaking hearts. This is the man who killed the almighty Sigismund. Granted, he did that with a bunch of warp BS, but still unforgivable. His melee attacks with the Talon of Horus are decent, but they don't scale well in late game arena or raids. Even the recent Terminator buffs, he's outclassed by summoners like Archimedos and Harkin for campaign utility. He even recently lost his big target trait, meaning that he doesn't support his team as well as he used to. First Amongst Traitors is still a pretty strong passive, but he himself is fairly squishy, despite the Terminator armor. For a legendary, Abaddon's more disappointing than a failed Black Crusade. Dark Strider, the Tau Sub-Commander, sounds awesome with his suppression, decent mobility, and infiltrate, but he's squishier than a grot and his damage fizzles out thanks to its low pierce ratio. He does mesh very well with other Tau units, but they literally all do, so that's not really a strength in his department. Some people call him one of the least worth upgrading, with Shadow Sun and Revis stealing the spotlight. He might be clutch for a win in specific legendary events, but the investment isn't all that worth it. He's not bad, all things considered, but Dark Strider's not leading the greater good anywhere fast. The Tyrant Guard is a tanky Tyranid meant to shield your swarm, but he's more like a speed bump. He soaks hits okay, especially for a big target, but his damage output is non-existent. Sure, if it sticks near the Neurothrope or other squishier Nids, it can definitely keep them alive, but it still just feels like the worst Nid to me. He's not objectively bad, just the worst in his group. Compared to damage dealers like the Neurothrope again and the summon spam of the Winged Prime or Parasite, it's a hard pass for arena or raids. Community posts also agree that the Tyrant Guard is a meat shield that's mostly just meat. Next is Makatep, the Necron Royal Warden. He should be a dynasty-defining force, but his combat capabilities leave a little bit to be desired. His active is a great combo with all of Nell's Scarab Swarms or Anifit's Warrior Summons, but other than that, he is not too great. His range is good, but I feel he could be slightly buffed by keeping his molecular damage model for melee attacks instead of changing it to physical. Tier list dump him in C tier, and he's only campaign mandatory for Necrons, but Aleph Null runs circles around him in arena and raids. Makatep's a relic in need of a reanimation protocol. Sybil Divine, the Astra Militarum Psyker, is a psychic dud. She's somehow statistically stronger than Tigurius, but her abilities are her weakest point. Adding Infiltrate to adjacent allies is neat, as is the damage reduction, but her active is just so painfully inconsistent. It can be devastating, but it mostly never is. She's really only useful for early Cadian missions. When compared to Thaddeus Noble or Yarick, Sybil is just a liability. If you need a Psyker, I'd probably look elsewhere. Her Divine Spark is barely a glow. Corodius, the Noxious Blightbringer, brings Poxwalker summons and a Contagion aura, but it's just not enough. His summons are slow and fragile since demons have no armor, and he needs specific setups to shine. His biggest asset is his mobility boost to Chaos units and his Contagion Orin, but that's basically just given for turn 1. His passive is interesting, damaging Psychers who deal psychic damage, but it's very situational. I'd put him as niche at best, with Rotbone or Typhus outclassing him. Corodius is decaying faster than his enemies.
Snap Rekka is the garrote shooter-boy that promises Daka but can't stay alive long enough to dish it out. His ranged attacks are strong with a good debuff, but he also hurts himself when attacking, and he lacks the durability or utility of Gulgords or Gibbascraps. I may have him maxed out in rarity with a blue star, but that's only to farm Archaeotech from arena crates. In actuality, even after the rework, he's low priority, only good if you're desperate for an Orc in campaign. Snap Rekka's Wog is more of a whimper. Ugh, this one hurts. Helbrecht, the Black Templar's High Marshal, boosts ally damage in a number of ways, which sounds great, but it is not as powerful as you think. His passive against Psykers is great against Psyker-heavy teams, but his attacks are a little softer than you'd imagine. He does have the ability to one-shot Scarab Swarms, which is always a bonus, but then again, so does Ragnar, and he's far more universally useful. His ranged attack is a joke, unfortunately, but it's nice to have the option. Again, he isn't bad, and I dare not speak against my High Marshal, but he's just not as strong as those beneath him. Compared to all the other chapter masters, he's a bit weak. Helbrecht needs a buff to lead the charge. Jane Czar, the Phoenix Lord, should be a melee terror, but she's too fragile for high-level play, and her damage doesn't exactly scale. Eldari players pick Eldaron or Calandus over her, leaving her in C-tier limbo. She's campaign mandatory for same high and elite, only because the campaign shoots up in difficulty very suddenly, so you need the extra body, but her lack of versatility makes her a tough sell. She's got some crowd control capability, and her terrifying trait makes her a good fit for some legendary event challenges, but as an actual adversary, I never take her seriously. Njal, the Space Wolves Rune Priest, should summon storms, but he's more like a light breeze. His psychic abilities are underwhelming, and he is too squishy for arena or raids. I'll just compare him to his counterparts real quick. He's got 2 mobility, so that's pretty awful. His damage output is less than literally every other Psyker in the game. Only one who comes close is Archimedos, but even he has summons. His health and armor also aren't impressive, and his only benefit is his Terminator buff. His spawning of ice hexes can also actively harm your team if they aren't able to easily bypass them. Compared to the rest of the Space Wolves, Njal is not howling at the moon. He's not just the worst Space Wolf, he is the worst character in the game by far. Asmodai, the Dark Angel's Interrogator Chaplain, is great at yelling at heretics, but not much else. His anti-chaos niche is situational, and his damage and durability are middling. He does give the Dark Angels a decent boost in effectiveness against chaos enemies, but he himself is not really strong. For me, it was a toss-up between Barakiel and Asmodai, but at least Barakiel is a Deep Strike Terminator with block capabilities that boost with the number of blocked hits and adjacent Dark Angels. Plus, his ability can be used multiple times for battle, making him great for mission grinding. But back to Asmodai, he's more bark than bite. Vitruvius, the Admech High Priest, has buffs that sound cool and situational, but his active is lacking. This is another one of those cases where he isn't bad, he's actually really good, but he's just the worst of his group. He's a medic. His ranged attack allows for additional hits from friendlies, just like with Thoriad, and this passive stacks with Thoriad, making them a great combo. His damage is alright by itself, it just really is his active ability that isn't all that strong. His kit lacks the punch of other Admech heroes, and he's rarely seen in competitive play, and for me, he is never a prime target on the battlefield. Vitruvius is stuck trailing behind the rest of his mechanical brethren. Macer, the World Leader's bloodthirsty berserker, should be a skull-taking machine, but he's more like a paper cut. His melee damage is decent, but doesn't scale all that well, and he's outclassed by Rask or Karn. His active at Gold 1 on paper is devastating, unleashing 4,000 damage up to 3 enemies in front of him, but unfortunately that damage is physical, so anyone with armor is going to negate a lot of that. His passive of stunning enemies after they had killed a character and his damage increasing as his health drops are neat, but they are situational, and one literally requires him to be closer to death to be more effective. He's great in my eyes, but just the worst of the Rage Boys. Judd, the Gene Stealer cult's Kellermorph, is all about getting in lots of hits then getting out of the way. It could be that I don't have her all that upgraded yet, but she's just not someone I prioritize. Her abilities are honestly pretty neat, with her active making her the tankiest of the very squishy GSC characters, with her being able to respawn giving her additional longevity. But the biggest draw of the Gene Stealers is that they're a faction of summon spammers, and Judd is the only non-summoner, severely reducing her effectiveness. Combine that with a terrible damage model, and I just don't see how she's worth her time. Judd's Uprising is more of a sit-down. Roswitha, the Canoness, should be purging heretics and cleansing the battlefield, but aside from her niche benefits, she's kind of a letdown. She's another one, she's good, but she's just not good at the rest. Her main strengths are in guild raid boss battles, as she has abilities that drastically increase her damage against Psykers and demons. With a number of raid bosses being demons and almost all of them being Psykers, she's a great choice, especially when paired with Vitruvius and Thoriad to really dish out that damage. Unfortunately, she's kind of a glass cannon, and honestly pretty bad at crowd control unlike her other sisters. Roswitha's faith is strong, but her impact is weak. Toth, the Thousand Suns Terminator, should be a lot tankier than he is. His Terminator buff does decrease that initial damage and his passive lets him heal, but after that initial hit, his defenses are comparably bad, and his damage output is also shameful, unless he's wiping out Scarab Swarms with one go with his ranged attack. He synergizes really well with other Thousand Suns, but his lesser mobility means he's often left in the dust when going into battle. Compared to Abraxas or even Yazgor, Toth's a liability. He's needed for campaign, and even then, he's a bench warmer. Asoth, the Adeptus Custodes Vexillus Praetor, should be a golden god, but he's more like a bronze bust. This may be a little harsh since the Custodes have just been added to the scene, but honestly, they are all pretty bad except for Carrion. The only reason he's worse than Trajan is his damage model is awful and has the usual drawbacks of being a big target, namely that he is comically squishy given that he's supposed to be a tank. The only benefit is that his ability can be used multiple times per battle. Aethos is not guarding the Emperor's honor here, and he should probably retire. Mephiston, the Blood Angel's Lord of Death, sounds like a psychic powerhouse, but in Tacticus he's a bit of a letdown. Yep, here it is, the one I'm sure will rustle everyone's jimmies. Mephiston, the Lord of Death, the most powerful psyker in the galaxy, is the weakest Blood Angel? Well, yes. This is the problem with all the legendary characters from the lore in this game. They need to make them competitive to a degree, and can't have them actually pulling off all the feats they do in lore. It would just make for bad balance. If everyone was lore accurate, the Custodes would not be awful. Tigurius would wipe Nids with ease, Abaddon would actually be good, Helbrecht and Jane Czar would be melee gods, and a Scarab Terminator would not go down so easily. But I digress. So keep in mind, I am not bashing him as a character, just as Tacticus units. His damage is decent, and his abilities deal some neat debuffs, but just like all Psychers, he's really squishy for high-level fights. Compared to lesser characters like Matineo and Lucian, Mephiston struggles to justify his legendary status. Mephiston's rage needs a bigger bite. And there you have it, the 19 biggest letdowns in Tacticus, from paper-thin Ultramarines to psychic duds. Are any of these your guilty pleasure picks, or do you have a bigger flop to roast? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's start a WOG in the discussion. If you love this grimdark takedown, hit that like button, subscribe for more Tacticus carnage, and ring the bell to never miss a battle. Join my loyal Patreon patron Zane Tor by using the link below and get your constant video appreciation to appear right here. Grab some merch from my store and remember to stay awesome. Until next time, keep fighting the good fight, or at least a better one than these guys, and battle on for the Emperor!